Have you ever wondered why, even when everything seems to be going right, you still feel off? You speak with confidence. You smile when you're supposed to. You act like you've got it all together. But deep down, something doesn't feel real. Like you're playing a role the world applauds, yet one you barely recognize anymore. Here's the truth. What you were taught about confidence is a lie. And that lie is slowly draining your peace, your energy, your sense of self. Einstein once said, "Try not to become a person of success, but rather a person of value." And maybe what's been suffocating you isn't a lack of confidence. It's the weight of constantly trying to look like you have it. Today, I want to show you a different way. Not to become stronger, louder, more dominant, but to return to who you actually are, without needing to prove a thing. If this stirred something in you, hit subscribe. Because this channel is for the ones who are done performing and finally ready to feel whole. Let's begin. And by the end, maybe you'll realize you never needed confidence. You just needed truth. You've been told a story your whole life. That confidence is the key, that if you just looked the part, spoke with certainty, pushed through fear, everything would fall into place. People would respect you, opportunities would come, the self-doubt would fade. But let's be honest, has that really happened? Because deep down, even on your best days, something feels off. You smile, you perform, you do everything right. And still, there's that voice, the one that whispers, "They don't really know how lost I feel." You keep chasing that feeling of enough, but it never stays, and no one talks about it. That's the lie, the one no one warned you about. You see, what they called confidence wasn't confidence at all. It was performance. It was armor. It was pretending to be certain in a world that feels anything but safe. And maybe you're exhausted from wearing that mask, from trying to feel big when all you really feel is small. Einstein once said, "The measure of intelligence is the ability to change, not to fake it, not to force it, but to change from the inside out. To let go of the story that says you need to be louder, stronger, more like them, and instead begin asking a new question. What if confidence isn't something I earn, but something I return to?" This isn't about motivation. It's not about power poses or morning routines. This is about remembering a part of you that never needed to be fixed. The part that knew, even as a child, that you were worthy. Before the world told you otherwise. And maybe today, you're ready to stop chasing the performance and start coming home to the truth. You don't need more confidence. You need less pretending. Let's break something wide open. You've been taught that confidence is a personality trait, that some people are just born with it, loud, bold, magnetic, and others have to chase it their entire lives. It's the myth we've all swallowed, that confidence looks like volume, like power, like walking into a room and owning it. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly seen by someone who was performing confidence? Probably never. Because performance doesn't connect, presence does. And this is where the myth begins to crack. Real confidence, the kind that lasts when the lights go off and the room empties. It doesn't come from pretending you're invincible. It comes from knowing you don't have to be. Albert Einstein wasn't loud. He wasn't charming in a traditional sense. He didn't walk around with a puffed chest and booming voice. In fact, he was quiet, awkward, even considered slow as a child. But his presence? Unmistakable. His confidence? Unshakable. Not because he mastered the game, but because he refused to play it. He understood something most people never learn, that the pursuit of confidence through external validation is a trap, a moving target. The more you try to appear confident, the further you drift from actually feeling it. And maybe that's where you've been stuck, trying to prove something, trying to hide the shaking hands, the racing thoughts, the doubt that wakes you up at 2 a.m. whispering, "You're not good enough." But what if doubt isn't the enemy? What if real confidence is built not in the absence of doubt, but in your ability to stay soft inside it. Einstein once said, "A calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined." With constant restlessness, he wasn't just talking about lifestyle, he was talking about identity, about letting go of the restless pursuit of trying to seem confident, and instead finding peace in simply being. Because the truth is, the more you try to appear confident, the more disconnected you become from the version of you that already is. You don't need louder words. You need deeper roots. You don't need to conquer the room. You need to belong to yourself in it. So here's the shift. Real confidence doesn't walk in and say, "Look at me." It walks in and quietly whispers, "I'm okay," even if no one does. And when you get that, truly feel that, everything begins to change. You stop performing. You stop chasing. You start breathing again. And that's where your power lives. You want to know the real reason confidence feels so far away? It's not because you're broken. It's not because you're not good enough. It's not because you missed some secret that everyone else magically figured out. It's because somewhere along the line, you learned to lie to yourself, not the obvious kind of lie. Not the kind you can name and challenge and fix, but the quiet kind. The lie that sounds like, "I'm fine." The lie that shows up when you smile, even though your chest is tight and your thoughts are screaming. The lie that says, "I've got this," when deep down, you're begging for someone, anyone, to see how much you're carrying. It starts early. Maybe it happened the first time someone laughed when you spoke up, or the time you were told to toughen up instead of being comforted, or the 100 little moments where being sensitive, scared, or unsure was punished instead of understood, and so you did what any smart, emotionally intelligent child would do to survive. You adapted, you disconnected, you built a version of yourself that could keep going, even if it meant going numb. And that version, it looked confident. It played the part. It knew the right words, the right smile, the right armor. But underneath, you started to lose touch with something far more important, your truth. And that's what Einstein was really pointing to when he said, "The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination." Because imagination isn't just about fantasy. It's about the ability to dream a self beyond your pain, to see yourself not just as you were told to be, but as you actually are. See, the greatest self-deception is not that you think you're unworthy. It's that you started believing the story that your worth depends on how well you perform, how put together you seem, how on you are. But confidence doesn't live in performance. It lives in presence. And presence is impossible when you're constantly abandoning your feelings just to get through the day. That's why the more you pretend you're okay, the worse it gets. Because you're not lying to the world anymore. You're lying to yourself. And here's the thing. Your nervous system knows. Even when your mouth says, "I'm good," your chest tightens. Even when your face smiles, your gut aches. That inner dissonance, that split between what you feel and what you show, it drains you. It slowly convinces you that confidence must be earned, that you have to work for the right to rest, that you have to impress to be accepted, that being real is a risk you can't afford to take. But what if the real risk is staying fake? What if the longer you keep lying to yourself about what you need, how you feel, who you are, the more you suffocate the very part of you that was meant to lead? Einstein didn't let the world define his value. He didn't conform to its expectations. He rejected blind obedience, even when it cost him acceptance. He once said, "Blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth." Now think about that and apply it inward. What if you have become the authority that your truth is afraid of? What if the voice that once came from outside, the critic, the doubter, the dismissive parent, the shaming teacher, has now moved inside you? That's the deepest root of self-deception. You start mistaking the voice of your wound for the voice of your wisdom, and you wonder why confidence never stays, Because confidence isn't about how loudly you talk. It's about how honestly you listen. So here's the question. No one ever teaches you to ask, what part of me have I been pretending not to hear? The part that's tired? The part that's scared? The part that's still waiting for permission to slow down, speak up, be messy, be real? You can't build confidence on a foundation of self-rejection. You can't lie to yourself and expect to feel whole. Einstein's genius didn't come from perfect logic. It came from courageous curiosity, from asking what no one else would ask, from wondering out loud in a world that demanded certainty. You can do the same. You can stop pretending you're okay just to make others comfortable. You can stop minimizing your pain just because someone once said it was too much. You can stop waiting to feel ready and instead start by being real. Because real is where your confidence lives. It's in the moment you admit you don't know and trust yourself anyway. It's in the breath you finally take after years of holding it in. It's in the decision to show up, not as who you think you should be, but as who you really are. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That's the beginning of everything you've been looking for. Because once you stop lying to yourself, you stop needing to prove yourself. And when that happens, the confidence you've been chasing begins to come home to you. Confidence is sold to us like a miracle drug, as if once you have it, everything gets easier. You speak louder, you walk taller, you take up space, people respect you, opportunities flow, life finally says yes. But what they don't tell you is this. Sometimes, the pursuit of confidence becomes the very thing that breaks you. Because what if you're forcing yourself to act confident while quietly falling apart inside? You know that feeling, don't you? You put on the face. You do the thing. You show up with your shoulders back, your tone steady. But underneath, you're exhausted. You're faking it so hard you've forgotten what real even feels like. And here's the part no one tells you. Fake confidence costs more than it gives. It drains you. It disconnects you. It teaches your nervous system that the real you isn't safe to be seen. That's not empowerment. That's emotional self-abandonment. But because the world claps for performance, we keep going. We mimic the confident ones. We copy the poses, the power stances, the mantras. We trick our brain with affirmations we don't believe just to survive. Another day. And it works. Kind of. Until the mask starts to crack, and you find yourself alone, wondering why success still feels hollow, why love still feels out of reach, why you still feel like you're chasing your own reflection. Einstein wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't the kind of man you'd call personality plus. He once said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value." Now think about that. Confidence is often used to chase success. But value, that comes from alignment, from truth, from choosing to be whole over being impressive. We live in a world that rewards loudness, but confidence without integrity is just ego in disguise. And sometimes the people who seem the most confident on the outside are the ones most lost inside. So what do you do when confidence begins to hurt you? When it becomes a mask you're afraid to take off? You pause, you breathe. You come back to what Einstein never forgot. That stillness is intelligence. That humility is power. That pretending is not the same as presence. Because true confidence? It doesn't look like dominance. It doesn't sound like volume. It feels like quiet alignment, like being okay with not having all the answers. Like standing in your truth even if your voice shakes. Like knowing who you are even when no one's watching. That kind of confidence doesn't burn you out. It grounds you. And you don't find it by performing. You find it by returning. To yourself. To your breath. To the part of you that never needed to prove anything in the first place. Let's go deeper. Let me ask you something that most people never say out loud. What if your insecurity didn't start with you? What if the voice in your head, the one that doubts, compares, second guesses, wasn't actually your voice, but one you inherited? A parent's disappointment, a teacher's criticism, a society's standards that never fit your soul. Over time, those messages stop sounding like them. They start sounding like you. And you begin to live inside a story you never chose. A story that says, you're too much, you're not enough. You'll be lovable when... Insecurity, at its root, is not a lack of confidence. It's a wound made of all the moments you weren't seen, heard, or valued the way you needed. And instead of healing, most of us cover it up. We hustle for worth, we achieve for love, we perform for belonging. But the wound stays, because no amount of outside validation can fill the hole left by early invalidation. Einstein once said, "Few are those who see with their own eyes and feel with their own hearts." And that's the beginning of healing. Seeing with your own eyes again. Feeling with your own heart, not with the filters the world gave you. Not with the stories shame wrapped around your truth, but with clarity. Because here's what they never teach us: that you can be insecure and still be worthy, that you can feel uncertain and still be powerful, that your vulnerability doesn't make you fragile, it makes you honest. Confidence isn't the absence of insecurity. It's the courage to meet your insecurity with kindness, to stop punishing yourself for wounds you didn't cause, to stop pretending you're fine when you're hurting, to stop using performance as a substitute for self-respect. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be more polished. You don't need to be fixed. You need space. You need gentleness. You need the kind of love Einstein gave to the mysteries of the universe. Patient, curious, unconditional, because you are a mystery too, and you're worth understanding. The moment you stop trying to solve yourself and start listening to yourself, the wound begins to heal, and in that healing, something beautiful returns. The quiet knowing that you were never broken, just unrecognized. That's what insecurity is, unrecognized beauty. And now, maybe for the first time, you're starting to see it. We live in a world obsessed with confidence. Bold, take up space, crush your goals. Fake it till you make it. It sounds empowering, and sometimes it is. But underneath that shiny message is a quieter question nobody wants to ask. Why do we crave confidence so badly in the first place? Because deep down, most of us aren't looking for confidence. We're looking for permission. Permission to speak, to be seen, to take up space, not because we forced it, but because we finally believed we deserved to exist as we are. You see, confidence, as it's sold to us, is often about control. Control the room, control the outcome, control how others perceive you. But wholeness is about surrender. It's not about dominating, it's about integrating, not about impressing, but about accepting. Not about being more, but being real, and that terrifies people. Because being real means being vulnerable. It means showing the parts of you that don't have it all together. But here's the truth. Most of us aren't chasing confidence. We're running from shame. Shame that says you're too quiet. Shame that says you're too emotional. Shame that says you don't belong unless you earn your place. And so we reach for confidence like a costume. We mask the insecurity. We pose, we posture, we push through. But the pain doesn't go away. Because the part of you that feels unworthy isn't asking to be silenced. It's asking to be seen. Albert Einstein wasn't the kind of man who walked into a room and commanded it with bravado. He often felt out of place in social situations. He once wrote, "I am a horse for a single harness, not cut out for tandem or teamwork." And yet, he changed the world. Not by pretending to be someone else, but by honoring who he truly was. He didn't chase confidence. He followed curiosity. He didn't try to be loud. He tried to be true. That's the secret no one talks about. When you stop performing confidence and start pursuing wholeness, something shifts. Your voice softens, but it doesn't disappear. It becomes more honest. Your energy slows, but it doesn't weaken. It becomes more grounded. Because when you feel whole, you no longer need to prove anything. You become the kind of presence people trust. Not because you're impressive, but because you're real. That's not the kind of confidence you can fake. It's the kind that comes from knowing this truth. I belong, even when I don't feel bold, even when I don't feel loud, even when I'm still becoming. Confidence will make you louder. Wholeness will make you free. And maybe for the first time, that freedom is what you're really after. You say you're fine. You smile when they ask how you're doing. You go to work, answer the texts, even laugh at the right moments. But behind the mask, something's unraveling. It's not dramatic. Not the kind of breakdown that draws attention. It's slower, quieter. The kind of collapse that happens in small, invisible ways. You forget why you walked into a room. You stare at your phone, hoping it will distract you from yourself. You feel heavy in your chest, but can't point to why. This is what happens when we confuse confidence with containment. We hold everything in, the disappointment, the fear, the grief. Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that to be strong is to be silent. That to have it together is to never let anything fall apart. But the human soul was never designed for that. Albert Einstein once said, "A human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space." He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. That delusion? It's the story that you have to carry everything alone, that if you're struggling, it means you're weak, that if you speak your truth, you'll lose your worth. But confidence, real confidence, doesn't live in perfection. It lives in honesty, the kind that says, "I'm not okay today," and that's okay. The kind that lets you breathe instead of perform, that invites you to cry instead of cope. And here's what no one tells you. The moment you allow yourself to be real, you begin to heal. Because healing doesn't begin when you feel better. It begins when you feel safe enough to stop pretending. That's the turning point. The collapse doesn't have to destroy you. It can become the doorway. Back to presence. Back to stillness. Back to the part of you that's been whispering, "Please stop faking it, I'm tired." You don't need to fix yourself. You need to feel what you've been taught to suppress. You need to give your heart room to ache, without shame, to be messy, without guilt, to be seen, without the pressure to be perfect. Einstein didn't live by appearances. He lived by insight. And he knew that sometimes the most brilliant truths are found in the quiet surrender of, "I don't know how to keep doing this." That sentence? It's not weakness. It's the beginning of wisdom. There's a moment in everyone's life when hiding stops working, not because the world told you to stop, but because something deeper inside you started to ache. Not for attention, not for validation, but for truth, for freedom, for the quiet, sacred relief of being seen, exactly as you are. You've spent years shaping yourself to fit, years filtering your words, adjusting your tone, calculating your reactions, not to manipulate, but to survive. Because somewhere along the way, you learned only the right version of you gets loved, the confident one, the happy one, the strong one. But Einstein once said, "The pursuit of truth and beauty is a sphere of activity in which we are permitted to remain children all our lives." What if that child is still inside you, not naive, but pure, not immature, but untouched by the armor you had to build? The courage to be seen is not about oversharing. It's not about putting your pain on display. It's about stopping the performance. It's about choosing honesty, even when it makes you tremble. It's about trusting that your truth won't make you unlovable. It might actually be the first thing that sets you free, You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to fix your voice, your past, your tears, your timing. You just have to stay with yourself, with the moment, with the trembling truth that says, I'm still figuring it out. I'm still healing. I'm still here. That's enough. Einstein didn't become who he was by chasing perfection. He stayed with the questions. He honored the unknown. He allowed himself to not know, to not conform, to not hide the depth of his own mind, even when it made others uncomfortable. You can do that too. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from being okay not knowing, and choosing to be present anyway. So maybe your greatest power isn't how put together you seem, but how deeply you're willing to show up, exactly as you are. That's where your transformation begins. That's where you stop performing and start becoming. So, maybe confidence isn't what we thought it was. Maybe it's not about being loud, or sure of yourself all the time, or having all the answers neatly lined up. Maybe real confidence is just this: learning to stand in your truth, even when it's messy. Learning to let go of the mask, the pressure, the idea that you have to be someone else to be respected, loved, or enough. Because here's the thing no one tells you. You're allowed to be in process. You're allowed to still be figuring things out. You're allowed to feel unsure and still be worthy of everything good. That's the part that matters. And that's what Einstein, in his own quiet way, tried to teach us. That there is beauty in uncertainty. That the mind doesn't have to dominate the heart. That presence, not perfection, is where we find our real power. So if you've been walking around with that heavy armor of, I have to look confident, if you've been exhausted from pretending, if you've been faking your way through success while quietly wondering if anyone would love the real you beneath it all, let this be your permission to stop. Stop proving. Stop performing. Start showing up, even if your voice shakes. That version of you, the one who's a little raw, a little scared, but still here, still trying, that's the version the world is starving for, because we don't need more polished people. We need more honest ones, and maybe you're exactly what someone else needed to see today. Someone who chose to be real. So, take a breath. Let the pressure drop for a moment. And ask yourself, what if I never needed to be confident the way they told me? What if I just needed to trust the quiet strength already living in me, the one that doesn't shout but never wavers? That's where your confidence lives. Not in the pose, not in the power stance, but in the part of you that's still here, still soft, still listening. And if any part of you felt seen in this video, if something softened in your chest or a thought clicked into place, then I want to ask you something real. Take 20 seconds and comment below. What version of yourself are you ready to stop pretending to be? Or maybe, what's one part of you you're ready to let the world see, even if it's still a little shaky? Because when we name it, we start to reclaim it. And if you know someone, even just one person, who's been feeling like they have to fake their way through life, share this with them. You never know what kind of healing one honest conversation can begin. And finally, if you want more of this space, this calm, real emotional depth, then come with me to the next video. The Einstein idea that could break a lifetime of self-doubt. It's not just a video, it's a doorway to remembering who you are beneath all the pressure to be something you're not. I'll meet you there. And until then, don't forget, you don't need to be louder to be stronger. You just need to be more you. And that's enough, always has been.